Okay, good evening from South Africa. Able to appear. Okay. Hi Cindy, very well, thanks. How are you? In Ohio? How's Frank? Beautiful, man. Having a good time in South Africa. Beautiful town of just as beautiful as Ohio when I was there. I'm waiting for your invite again, Cindy, so I can come back and talk there. It'll be beautiful. Hi Cheryl, how are you? Lovely to see you online, Cheryl. And for all it's amazing. Sorry, but these things do happen. Give me a second. How do you turn it off? Sorry about that. It will be turned off now. I'm a bit technically challenged when it comes to that. Like I am on a golf course. How's it, Richard? How are you? Teresa Burgess, good. Great to see you online. Diane, good to see you online. And we'll wait for about another 2 minutes and we'll start and we'll see what we can get out of it and keep us sober. And for all the other people that have been sharing this unique thing around the world every hour, thank you very much. And hey, no one helps. And Kent, Ohio, you got a beautiful state there, absolutely beautiful state. Okay. Phones go mad all the time, so okay. Just answer it. Just answer it. Okay. Okay, Richie's there, Diana's there, Vanessa. Hi Vanessa, how you doing? Granny, I just became a granny again. Well done. Congratulations, beautiful. Hi Bobby. Trust the family's well, the son's well. Hi Richie. Can't wait to hear some recovery, Richie. That's all we do is recovery. Richie went from being on the streets from drugs, and today he's a Springbok wrestler again, and we're proud of you, Richie. Give us hope. Hi Michelle, how you doing? Everything's fine here. Michelle's son is with us. Okay. I think I'm going to start in another minute. Just get like the throat cleared. I'm doing it on my phone because you can't seem to connect on the computer, but that's okay. If you can all see me, that's fine. Ever seen a person fail who thoroughly followed our path? My name is Anthony. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict, and I'm sober by the grace of God. Hi Lee, the social media manager of RAEL from Newcastle, London. How are you? When we look back and think about, okay, why do I sit where I sit today after a life that I believe that was lived well? I had good times. Most of the times were good times. And when I crossed the invisible line, that's where everything just went pear-shaped. A little bit of background. I want to start first with the word. I believe if you want recovery, you want recovery. If you want alcohol. There's no half measures. We can't say, okay, well, I'm going to do this only on weekends. I'm going to do this only on a Friday. Or I'm going to let my children go to trance parties and think that they're going to find popcorn for sale. We as parents have to take charge. We can't keep them in a cocoon, but there are things that we can do. And in doing those things, sorry, my tongue is red. I ate fizzes. I'm addicted to fizzes now. I was addicted to everything else. I started on Chivas Regal and I ended up on wine that people actually paid you to drink. We go through a lot, people that are now in recovery. We go through a lot of remorse and we know we have to make amends. But a lot of people hold against your past against you all the time. They hold the past against you because you want to free yourself. But when you've made the amends, you have freed yourself. So free yourself. They can't have your key for the rest of your life. If people come to you and say, and drop, this is all that is against you. The simple thing is to say, well, God has dropped all charges. Spare my feelings, save my life. We're here in a battle for our lives. And we're a battle for our lives, and we have people around us that keep. Welcome to the person online here tonight who's 1 day sober. The journey is beautiful. Don't look to get 10 years sober or 15 years sober. Take it 1 day at a time and don't miss the journey. It's the most beautiful journey. Putting down the drink and the drugs is the easy part of sobriety. But living a lifestyle of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And the willingness is to keep me sober so tomorrow I won't wake up with my head in the toilet and my false teeth falling out again. I used to keep the guy at the false teeth people, I used to keep them in business. Because every time, binge, false teeth, missing, broken, and then he used to go, I need some false teeth. Yeah, Anthony, you go through a lot of false teeth. What's happening, brother? Didn't tell him I was a drunk. Because the last person who found out I was a drunk was me. I want to start just before I tell you a bit of my life, word respect. And I think that's what is missing in our nation and in our world. South Africa is virtually in a drug rehab and an alcohol rehab as I talk to you. Our bottle stores are closed. You can't get cigarettes unless you know someone. So everyone's down in rehab. You may as well just put a cover over South Africa and call it, I don't know, and call it after Cheryl's rehab. And I don't think that is a good idea. Why should some people suffer? I'm the alcoholic. Whether the bottle stores are open or closed, I'm the alcoholic. And the alcoholic, do you want to go and drink or don't you want to go and drink? Because you go past bottle stores or you go into shops all the time that sell alcohol. That's the great since I last took a drink. Because I don't want to take a drink. I don't want to go back to be homeless. I don't want to go back to prison. I no longer want to sleep on the streets. I no longer want to sleep on cardboard. I no longer want to put these hands in a rubbish bin and take out my food for the night before I went to go sleep in front of a shop door for a long time. I didn't listen to my parents. I had no respect for my parents. Everything was fine while they were doing everything for me. Excuse me. But when I left and the drink started taking over, the respect, I'm going to use the word respect. For respect is responsible. Take responsibility for what I have done. I then can move on and say, okay, I'm going to be responsible today for my sobriety. If I don't look after my sobriety, I can't look after and help other people in their sobriety. I need to be focused and stay focused. Because alcohol, we know, and drugs is cunning, baffling, and powerful, but it's also patient. And it's busy eating up our nation and drugs around the world. It's become the new norm. We've got the coronavirus, but we've had the addiction pandemic far longer than the coronavirus. How many people have we had to bury from addiction? The E for respect is the endurance. This ain't when can I get to the end and to the finish line. This endurance is the journey. When the pit holes come, and when I feel like falling down, or when anyone is new in recovery feel like falling down, get up. Get up and talk to your sponsor. Go to a meeting. Don't first go to the drug dealer or to the bottle store and then pick up the telephone. We are seeing too many relapses in this time that we have at the moment in the lockdown. And that is worldwide of relapses. It's not right. Because there's a lockdown, I must relapse. No, man. No, man. Take your recovery seriously. All the material is there. When I joined Alcoholics Anonymous at the age of 25, 30 years ago, we didn't have laptops and we didn't have phones. We didn't have all the modern necessities. But I stayed sober for 2.5 years, and then I thought, okay, well, I knew the game. I got bigger than the game. And I was talking at all functions, and wherever they wanted me to talk, I would go and talk on my life story. But I forgot to work on myself. So the glory from outside was far greater at that stage than the glory from within. Alcoholics Anonymous and us alcoholics and us addicts, we need to work from inside out. The filth does not lie on our hands. The filth of what we've done in the past lies inside. It's like buying a brand new vacuum cleaner. I remember my mom vacuumed. My mom loved vacuuming. I don't know why she loved vacuuming, probably not to hear my voice when I was drunk. And then when we got this vacuum cleaner, it's beautiful on the outside. Like we get better on the outside in addiction recovery. We put on weight, we start looking well, and people say, wow, this man is doing so well, this woman's... Meantime, they're not. That's part of the con. Especially if people come into rehab and then they want to tell their mom, well, mom, look at the muscles I got, look at the stomach I've got, look what I've got, and then I can go, I'm ready to go, ma. But on the inside. So you take the vacuum machine and you pull out the bag and you close the vacuum machine. The filth is in the bag. The filth is in the inside. The filth ain't in the outside. Because that without the bag, that machine is still fine. That's how Alcoholics Anonymous and how we must work in recovery. To get to the point of, hey, I want to make this a way of life. I don't want to sit there and say, hey, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Being forced to go to meetings. If you don't want to go to meetings, don't go to meetings. But maybe go to a meeting. And you go to one meeting and you say, oh, well, I don't like this meeting, or I couldn't identify what the guy said or what the lady said. Well, go to another meeting and go to another meeting. Because at one of those meetings, your story will be told. And it won't be your name in it. It will be someone else. And then you can identify with him. If we're going to compare stories and compare war stories, we're on the wrong road. We just must identify so we feel at home. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous does for us. The S of respect is serenity. What I want with serenity? Serenity is only peace. It's another word for peace, that I want to wake up peaceful. I want to go to bed peaceful. I want to be peaceful during the daytime. I don't always get it right. But that's my strive. God grant me the serenity. So we're saying to God, God grant me the peace so that I can continue with my life and that I can be help to my fellow man. The P of respect is the purpose. We must have a purpose and a goal and a dream in our lives. We mustn't think because you come into Alcoholics Anonymous and people are going to say, oh, look at that person, he goes into Alcoholics Anonymous, he's this, he's that, he's that. Hey, hold it, man. Weren't we called other things before we became sober? So why must I worry about what someone is going to call me when I'm sober? It's my life. And that is what is important. Remove the stigma. I own a rehab in Cape Town, in South Africa, in Worcester, and a sober living. And the boys come in here and their self-esteem is low. And that's from the top of the range income to the bottom. Because they've been run down. And yes, quite rightly so, we've been told by our parents. I remember my mother hitting hangers over my head. Bless her, the poor soul who's injured, who's sick today in a frail care. I love my mother so much. But she should have hit me earlier in life. Because she used to break these wooden hangers on me. And then when I went to prison, and I came back quite a long time later, and I said to Mom, I'm coming home. She said, no, you're not. You're going to get sober first before I allow you in this house. And for 19 months, I slept on the streets of South Africa. I'd become a homeless beggie. And for my friends in international, that just means a homeless man that is down and out. I was faithless, jobless, godless, didn't want to liveless. Didn't want to live anymore. I had driven myself to the streets, but I had blamed everyone else that I was on the streets. I was the elf addict that was run riot by self-pity. And once we go into self-pity, we go in one way. We're going back to the dealer or the bottle store. Self-pity is our way of saying, okay, well, I've got justification. What justification, my friends, do we have to use? If you've been to the bottom, do you have the gift of desperation? Do you want sobriety? Are you willing to go to any length to get the sobriety? Are you willing to be the person who says, no matter what comes my past me, I want sobriety. You can't go into recovery or to recovery center or to AA because your wife wants you to, or you. No, ma'am. You go in there, you find recovery. You find solid recovery. And then the benefits and the perks and the rewards of sobriety is to get everything back. Everything back that the drug and the alcohol stole. And maybe sometimes it's going to happen that that's not going to come back what you want to come back. And that's when you have to let it go. We've heard that, let go and let God. Not easy. Not easy to let go and let God when things are going against you. But when things are going well, to let go and let God and say the serenity prayer, you'll say it all day. Because it's the easy way. So that's why we need to stay focused every day on our recovery. Anything that is toxic in your life, you get rid of. Anything. The E in respect is empathy. Don't have sympathy for us, the alcoholics and the addicts, and the families. Never forget the families. Look at the torture the families went through and they watched us sober doing it. Never forget that. The empathy for the still suffering alcoholic and addict and gambling addict and whatever addict there is, alcoholic on the streets of South Africa and the world tonight. It could be your child. It could be my child. We can't afford to look down. The only time we as alcoholics or we as human beings can ever is when we're trying to pick someone up. The C of respect is the courage to change. It takes courage. It takes courage to go from the unknown into the unknown. Unknown of what? When we drunk or drugged or drunk or whatever, we're in an unknown state, we're in oblivion. And suddenly we stop and we go into an unknown. What is that unknown? We don't know. And that's where we trust God one day at a time. We trust He is on top of the list. Anything you put above sobriety, you're going to lose, my friends. Anything you put above sobriety, you lose. It's God, sobriety. And God and sobriety go together, because from the God that we serve of our understanding is the man that gives us the grace. If we don't have the grace, there but for the grace of God, most of us addicts and alcoholics would be dead today. And a lot of times we go and we say to ourselves, I've got this grace on my life, and then I go do something, and whatever it is, and then I say, okay, there but for the grace of God, God forgive me. Because a lot of times when I was over the bowl of the toilet, puking my lungs out, I'd say to God, and by the way, the toilets were also made in China. It seems like everything's made in China these days. And puking my lungs out, I asked God, please, just take me through this binge and I'll never use again. When I'm standing in front of a judge, and I say to the judge, hey, Your Honor, and I'm begging and I'm praying and I'm saying, God, please, don't let this man send me back to prison, give me bail, withdraw the charges, do something. That's when I use God. And then I'd walk out of the court and go straight and drink. The insanity of addiction. And the T for respect, before I start talking a bit on my story, is the togetherness. Tonight we are together. No matter how many people watch this afterwards. You see people watch this at different hours because there's a different time zone around the world. But we're not here to impress. We're not here to say, okay, well, I'm a better speaker than you. I've been very fortunate in my 15 years of sobriety to be invited all around the world to tell my story. But that doesn't make me a better drunk or a better addict than anyone else. That doesn't make me a better person. Because if I can't talk to the one person and carry the message of hope, what chance have I got if I go talk to 20,000 people? We have to get to that mindset that we were the actors of the world. The alcoholic and addict thought that the world revolved around him. I used to think the world revolved around me because I was always in the pilot seat. But the day that I came and I went into the co-pilot seat and realized, hey, there's a power greater than myself who can lead me away from this. I went to, well, let me start this way quickly. I had the greatest mentor, and it's hard for me to say this, but I've been saying it for years, that I ever had in my life was my dad. When my dad was sober, he was the most beautiful, beautiful man. But when my dad was drunk, he was a horrible man. He worked 43 years for the same company. He provided for us. But material provision is not the same as love provision. And my earliest memory of about 5 years old is watching my dad beating my mother up while he was drunk. And I swore then I would never ever pick up drink. I was 5 years old. My mother used to often remind me of that. Didn't you remember what you said to me, my boy, when you were that age? I did. Standard 9 they put me through because of my sport. And then I wrote matric at school, and they never wrote back. I had a couple of resentments because they didn't write back, but that was okay. So I technically got a standard 7, but it's okay. Then I went to the murder and robbery unit because of my sport, and then, I first went to the drug squad, then to the murder and robbery unit, then I left there, left the police, got trying to involved with gangsters, and then it just transpired, hey, hold it, Anthony, you're getting yourself into this deep underworld. It's different being a detective and then you go into the underworld, because the underworld is waiting to eat you up. And then the guy that I used to operate with, one day he went out and we were together every day, and I got a message that I had to go somewhere, so I asked him to stop, and I got out the car, and 25 minutes later he was mowed down in Manenberg. His name was Bowtie. And then when I went to prison, the person that killed him said to me, Anthony, you were meant to be in the car because half those bullets were for you. Then the homelessness came. The homelessness of living on the streets, of drinking anything that came. Can't be fussy then. And then the miracle came. But 2 months before the miracle, the pain came in my family. I tonight talk to you, my brothers and sisters from all around the world. My family has never, ever reconciled after the death of my nephew. My sister's eldest child, firstborn, hung himself because of addiction. No one wants to bury a loved one when it comes to addiction. No one wants to bury a loved one that is younger than you. And I carried on drinking because I remember my mom coming into me that morning and said, Anthony, David's dead. I said, what do you mean David's dead? David's killed himself. I went out, and for the next 2 months, it was self-pity run riot. Anyone who wanted to listen to me, I tell them the story of how my nephew died. Please feel sorry for me. Poor me, poor me, poor me. Pour me another drink. And that's what I did. And on the 28th of June, my friends, this is what happened to me. Every morning I would go out into our garage. I had a little painting business then. And a guy, Marius, who worked with me, he would roll the joint and we'd have a beer before we left off for work. And I had no inclination that morning to stop drinking or drugging. It took me 17, 18 years to get back into Alcoholics Anonymous because there was one thing that was keeping me away. And one thing that keeps people away to this day is pride. Oh, what are they going to say when I come back there? What are they going to say? They're going to ask you, Anthony, where have you been? Where have you been? Where have you been? Why would they want to ask me that? They know they're alcoholics. They know exactly where I've been. And when I got back to Alcoholics Anonymous, they said to me, Anthony, welcome home. So we carry on, and so I had no inclination to stop. I was down to about 4. And I walked to the garage that morning, and I had my full of my dope, and then I had the drink, and I left about that much in the bottle. And I turned around, and I tried to pick up the bottle again, and I couldn't. And I turned around to Marius, who was a black man who's dead today, knows me for 18 years. And I said, Marius, I'm done. I don't know what came over me, but I know today what came over me. And I walked back inside to Mom, and I said, Mom, I'm done. And her words were again. I'd hurt that woman so much. I'd hurt my mother more than any other human being on this earth. So for the next 2 years, they said 90 meetings in 90 days. It wasn't enough for this Anthony Hall. 2 years, I went to almost 2,000 meetings. I went to meetings sometimes 3 times a day when they had it in Cape Town. I went to meetings in the mornings. I went to meetings in the evenings. I was desperate to stay sober. But what happened in that garage that morning is God away like that. And the main thing that he took away from me was the desire. Because 2 weeks later, from my painting business, a guy phoned me and said, please, will you come and paint my pub over the weekend in the evenings? Here's the keys. That's like telling a jailbreaker or a housebreaker, I'll leave the keys under the mat to help yourself. And I went to paint that place. I'd lost the desire. And by the grace of God, till today, I've lost that desire. But I went to work with people. In 2007, I opened up Recovering Addicts Empowering Lives. It's RAEL. It was only for support groups. But I went to go and carry that message. Went to AA, went to carry the message. Because that message carrying was keeping me sober. Whether I went to carry the message and the person didn't get sober, that's their thing to deal with. But it kept me sober. It kept me sober. So I'd keep coming back, going back. An accomplishment for another man's sobriety, but I can take accomplishment for I carried the message to you. I can't keep no one sober. No one can I keep sober, but I can give them the tools from experience. If you want it, take it. If you don't want it, your choice. This is about choice. What do I want in my life? Do I want to go through life unhappy? And since then, I've traveled and I've spoken in various places. I spoke in one of the most classic. I spoke in Ohio at Akron University. I spoke in New York. I spoke in a bomb shelter in Israel. It was a highlight. And what did I speak about? I just shared the story. What it was like, what happened, and what it is like now. But if I don't keep the humility should never be looked at as a weakness. Us alcoholics and addicts, we're not weak. When we want to work, we work. But humility becomes the teachability part. It's like when Winston Churchill, one of my heroes, when that lady, but so Winston, you drunk again. How many times have we been told that? And he turned around to her and said, well, lady, I may be drunk, but you will still be ugly in the morning. That's quite nasty. Don't do that one. People will judge us as we go along the line. Young people in recovery, do not give up. Do not think after a year or 2 years you've made it, because we've never made it. We're busy in it's progress, not perfection. You can't go from A to Z without going through B, C, D, E, F, G. To me, recovery works like this, and it's the way I look at recovery is that I was in a pit of hell screaming for help. And the more I screamed, the more I screamed, the more I screamed. What was I seeking help for? Was I seeking help to get over that binge? Or was I seeking help to live an alcohol and drug-free life? When I was in the police, I was charged with many things, murder, this, that. When I was in the murder and robbery squad, couldn't make amends. But what was I asking for? And I'm screaming for help, and the minister comes past, and he says, let me pray for you, son. So he prays for you. Then the doctor comes, and the doctor says, how can I help you? Dad, I've got the shivers, doctor. I've got the DTs. I used to detox in mental asylums. My parents would never send me to a rehabilitation center. And the doctor would give you a script and say, if you've got money, just go buy the tablet. Would be the psychiatrist, and he'd say, hey, hold it, you just need your head read. No. I'm suffering in this pit. I want another life. But sometimes we get so deep into it, we can't see. We can't see the fog ever lifting. We can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can't see the power greater than ourselves called God can lift us like that. And that's why we have an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous. From our experience, strength, and hope, where rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path, the path of the founders. Never get complacent in that. And I'm still screaming for help in the pit. And then in the distance comes a man, and he stands by the pit. He looks at me. And he gets into and I say to him, sir, in the arrogant way, what are you doing here? I'm trying to get out. And here you get in with me. And he turns around straight and he looks me straight in the eye. And he says, listen here, son. The reason I'm in the pit is because I've been there and I know the way out. It's time for young people who come into recovery. Of course, talk if you want to, but listen more. You know the old adage of taking the cotton wool out the ears and putting it in the mouth? It works. Because then you're going to be able to do something that very few people have got the opportunity to do in life. And that's going to play a part in saving another man or woman's life. It's an honor. If a person calls out for you for help, it's an honor. It's not the honor to run around and say, well, they called me for help, called me for help. No. You've been blessed. And then you just watch that flower open. That human being getting his wife back, getting his children back, getting his father back, getting his mother back. It's the most beautiful, beautiful sight you'll ever see. We must go and carry that message. What is going to happen to our children if we don't go to meetings anymore? What happens if we don't go to meetings and we go to a meeting and the doors are closed of Alcoholics Anonymous? Maybe that person would never come back again. Aye, Teresa. Maybe that person would never come back again. It's our responsibility to keep the doors open, whether there's one person in the meeting or whether there's 30 or 40 people in the meeting. Because the doors were there for us. And when we got to the door, they said, welcome home. If you want what we got, hit a bit of listen. Don't get bigger than this game, man. I've seen this game kill people. I've buried people. I've spoken at people's funerals. This is not a game. This is our lives. And then, looking at the time, it's 20 to 8 in South Africa. I don't know where it's all, what time it is around by all you people, because I see Joshua LaRue, what a lovely man, always supported Rael. Good evening, sir. I don't know where he's in the moment, probably Ukraine or something. I know his wife's in Cape Town, so in the old days I would have gone to visit. That was my style. Wine, woman, and song. You choose the order. Thought that the world, like I said, belonged to me. I've been very blessed since I've been sober. Very blessed. My heart pains for my mother now, especially during lockdown. I've been able to be a good son to my mom in the last 15 years. The woman that, first of all, who was my enabler, but put me in prison. I hated my mother. Today my mother is the finest woman in the world. I'll never find a woman like my mother. I love her to bits. And she's proud of her son. I was 2 years sober and I lost my father to Alzheimer's disease. I was sober enough to give the eulogy at his funeral, bury my dad sober. And that is one of the rewards of sobriety. We often look at the rewards of sobriety of only material things. What car have I got? What house have I got? But sometimes the rewards of sobriety come through other people to us. To show, hey Anthony, be grateful for what you've got. You got your life back. You were standing on the invisible line and you crossed it, you can't come back this wide. It's not going to work. Give me that peace. Give me that love. You are not the main man of the show. You're just a simple man carrying a message of hope to the still suffering addict or alcoholic. I see it's 1:45. I'm going to close just quickly, randomly in my head, 12 steps for those who don't know the 12 steps or those who... We all got our own interpretation of the 12 steps. Hello, AD? We all got our own interpretation. The first step says, I'm powerless over my alcoholism. My life had become unmanageable. Most people would never go into AA, NA, any A you want to, unless their lives were unmanageable. It should have read maybe, my life was unmanageable. I was powerless over alcohol and drugs. Totally. But I'm not powerless. When I'm powerless over something, it doesn't mean I can use it as an excuse to be powerless over the wind, or to be powerless over the weather, or to be powerless if my mother passes away. There are many things I'm powerless over, but it does not make my life unmanageable. We must think about that. And I must think about that. I mustn't use an excuse of being powerless about something because it's going to suit my life. When I went to Ohio and I spoke there on the Friday, and then I spoke at the thousands of people on the Saturday, I was powerless whether it's going to rain there. I was powerless what I'm going to say. There was a big crowd. I was quite newish. Powerless. I'm powerless when I want to be powerless. But I know if I pick up the drink, and you have someone who says, okay, I'm 13 years or 15 years or 2 years or 1 year or 3 weeks. Well, I'll swap you the 3 weeks for my 15 years of sobriety. And you're going to say to me, cheapest Anthony, you're mad. I've been called that before too. Yes, because the journey to 15 years is so beautiful. I never knew I'd own a rehabilitation center, talk at schools all around the country, and talk at many places overseas. That was God's grace. I wasn't powerless over that. The second step is the insanity, just going through it quickly. How many insane things have I done in my life? If I had to tell you all the insane things I've done in my life, we could be until the next extension of the lockdown. Sorry, I'm just going to have a drag on my cigarette if you don't mind. Any cigarettes in South Africa, just contact me. Can't do things in the dark, man. I could have gone off screen now and taken a drag. But that's still addict behavior. What I must do in the light. If I'm not honest, like it says on page 58 in chapter 5 of the big books of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I'm not honest, and in the next paragraph, if I'm not rigorously honest, doesn't mean half honest. I've never met a girl who's half pregnant. I was never half drunk, I was fully drunk. So the insane things we've done, and now we ask ourselves, do I do those same insane things while I'm sober? So, life. But I'm sober. I remember them. The third step, we hand over our life to a power greater than ourselves, who I call God. He floats my boat. He directs me where I'm going to. He says to me, do this, don't do this, when I'm listening to him. But there comes a lot of times that he doesn't respond to me quick enough, then I take it back. You can't hand over and take back. That's been like a Chinese giver. When you hand over, you hand over. The moral and inventory. Moral and fearless inventory of ourselves. It's easier for me to take inventory of doctors that messed my father's life up and my mother's life up in an operation. I wasn't in the theater, but I was angry. I was powerless over it. But if I could have done something stupid. And then who was going to look after my mother? But the inventory we take, it's easier to say that person is bad or that person is that. But why not take a personal inventory and clear the filth and then burn it? Step 5, we're going to admit it to ourselves, another human being, and to God. We've got to tell them our story. In my rehabilitation center, they come tell me their stories all the time. But in the first month, the story changes from the first month to the 6th month. But who are we trying to impress? There's so many success stories of addicts around the world that have become springboks, that are panel beaters, that have got jobs, hey man. Don't rush the miracle. Let the miracle unfold in His time. 6, about the character defects, our step 6. Yeah, we've all got character defects. Even people that say, hey, they're doctors, lawyers, this, they must be perfect. Their lives are not perfect. Nor is ours. We're not struggling for the perfection, we're struggling for and going towards the progress. The progress of life. The progress of enjoyment. The progress of making up for all the years that the locusts have stolen. All the years that we lost through being drunk, drugged, in a gutter, in a prison, homeless, wherever we've been. Surely we must make up for it. I was never invited to a place twice. And if it was always the second time was to apologize. Now I get invited to quite nice functions. Because I know I'm not going to have to apologize afterwards. That's our character defects. We all get character defects. Anger, dishonesty, or whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it. But we know what our character defects are, and we can make a plan with our character defects. So that is step 6. Step 7, we humbly ask God to remove these defects of character. How do I remove them? I just keep on praying. And when I see that I'm going down that road that I don't want to go down, I change course. I go down the road, there's a pothole, I will go through the pothole. I'll go down the road again, and there's a pothole, and I'll go through the pothole. The third time, I will go down the road and realize, hey, here's a pothole, and I'll take another road. That's what we're busy doing. We on the road to happiness, to joy, to freedom. But don't think there are no potholes on that road. There are potholes. But things that used to baffle us, situations that used to baffle us, we now will be able to look back and say, whoa, I know how to get around this one. I know what I'm going to do here. Step 8, I must go make amends. Sure. How many of us like to make amends? How many of us like to make amends? Or how many of us do make amends, and then we make amends too quickly? 1 month sober, and then you go tell the whole world, I'm sorry. Just a little bit of tip from me, get a bit of sobriety behind you. Get a bit of sobriety behind you. First, be comfortable in knowing that you're not going to suddenly just go and relapse. Or you're not there to play a game to get your wife back, or to get the key back to the door, or to be able to see your kids, or to stay out of prison. If those are the reasons you're coming into recovery, you ain't going to last. You ain't going to last. Make amends when you're ready. But make direct amends. Make the amends and mean the sorriness. And if the person doesn't take your amends, that's hard luck. That's life works. But as long as you've made the amends, as long as I've made the amends, it's beautiful to make amends to people. 9 is to make a direct amends, except where so would be to injure them or others. Now, don't go having an affair with a woman, and then you go 3 years later or 5 years later, and you go tell the husband, hello, I've come to make amends. I was sleeping with your wife for the last 5 years. Because that's going to cause damage. That's going to cause pain. That's going to cause more problems. That's going to break up a marriage. That is insanity. Don't do things like that. Don't do things like that out of bitterness. Step 10, if we take every night our personal, sometimes we write it down. I get my guys at the rehab to write it down every night. And you lie there, sometimes in front of the TV, or going to bed. Hey, was I selfish today? Was I dishonest today? Did I talk shit to someone today? Was I the right person today? Was I Anthony Hall today? Not Anthony Hall the drunk. Otherwise then I'm dry. And I'd rather be drunk than dry. Step 11, to keep our conscious contact with God. People say to me, you know the steps, you don't have to look at the book. Why must I look at a book of the steps? It's helped me save my life. Newcomers in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, or any anonymous you want to call, study the big book. Study from page 58. Study the steps, and then you can give yourself a breakdown like I have now. I give myself a breakdown every night. It takes 3 minutes to keep our conscious contact and work the 12 steps. And then the 12th step to me is the first step, which is the most important. Do the first step, 300%, you'll never, ever use again. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I carry the message to the still suffering alcohol and addict. That's what I've done for the last 15 years, every day of my life. I can't even think of 1 or 2 days where I haven't carried the message, besides when I was hospitalized. How do I carry this message? I go and tell the story, and I go and tell my story. I don't go and inflate my story. I don't bloat my story. I don't make it like I am the king of the story. No, my brothers and sisters. My name is Anthony Hall. I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. I'm here to tell you what happened to me and how I got out of the pit. You don't talk down to an alcoholic or an addict, even if they got no sobriety or 1 day sobriety. Remember, we were also there. We find a lot in meetings that some people think that if they don't speak, the meeting hasn't been a good meeting, or they want to run the show. That's dry drunkenness. That's what we talk about in the big book of being the actor and running the show. We've stopped running the show. We've stopped being the one who wants the limelight. I always wanted the attention, etc., but we've stopped that. If the attention comes our way and the limelight comes our way, we will accept it graciously. But I'm not going to go to a meeting and some guy is going to come and tell me, hey, hold it, you must do it this way. I'll tell him to piss off, man. He must give me suggestions. And he must give me his opinion. Anthony, this is what I did, my brother. Maybe it can work for you. I like to be instructed. Authority. Or in the past when we were drinking and drugging, we didn't like authority. But we need that humility for the teachability. I'm going to end off with grace. I love that word. I've been married more times than Jacob Zuma. I don't know if you've heard of him. It's just some corrupt president that we had. What was I trying to do by getting married so many times? I was lonely. My self-esteem was broken through drugs and alcohol, and I was trying to fill a hole in my soul. That's why. Not all my marriages. Trying to fill a hole in my soul. Aren't we as addicts and alcoholics trying to fill a hole in our soul? As we sit here tonight and other people come on later and they see this broadcast, speak, or he's from South Africa, that's irrelevant. What is relevant is, can his message help the still suffering alcoholic or addict stay sober for one more day? I'm going to end with the word grace. I believe that we're here. And the grace, hello Sharon. And the grace, and Stephanie's online. Hello Stephanie, I didn't even see you. She's my American friend. How's it, Stephanie? Rihanna, hello Rihanna. Okay. So as we go through it, and I thank you for listening tonight, for helping me stay sober. As every time I share my message, no matter where it is in the world, it keeps me sober. The G for grace is the gratitude. The gratitude that tonight I'm sober. The gratitude that tonight I could phone my mother. The gratitude that I can speak to my loved ones. The gratitude that I'm running a center where I can help young men try and find sobriety and lasting sobriety. The R is for respect. Today I've got self-respect. I respect myself. But I cannot respect others until I've respected myself. And today I respect myself. I respect who Anthony Hall is. I may not be the man I want to be, but thank God I'm not the man I used to be. The A is the acceptance. I accept I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict, which is a fatal illness if I don't follow God and the steps of Dr. Bill W. and carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic and addict. The C is the courage that I spoke about. The courage of you people, my friends, all you friends, watching. The courage to change. It's not easy to change. It's not easy to change. It's the hardest thing, but it's the most worthwhile thing. You're going to find a new life. You're going to find a new freedom. You're going to find new joy. You're going to find new hobbies. You're going to find, if you haven't found it again, or yet, the love of your life. But the most of all, for us alcoholics and addicts, you're going to find serenity. You're going to find peace. That's the courage and the empathy, the E for grace. Like I said earlier, the still suffering. There are millions and millions of our brothers and sisters still suffering in this world. There are millions with no money. There are millions who will never be able to get hope. Or have hope, they'll have hope, but hope to get into a rehab or help. Let's not walk past an alcoholic and an addict and look down on him and say, look at that alcoholic and look at that addict. Let us never forget where we come from. The day we forget where we come from, we're going back there. We're too big for this game, we're going back there. The day that we don't submit to God, we're going back there. Have we not had enough pain in our lives? Have we not had enough fighting in our lives? Haven't we made enough trouble in our lives? Don't we just want a life? God that we've still got a life. Thank God, for Alcoholics Anonymous, for my organization RAEL, and every single human being that has crossed my path, that Anthony Hall can say on an evening at 8 o'clock, I am sober and free, and let me never take it for granted. I'll close with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May God bless you. May God keep you. Thank you.